Hi guys, welcome to another Kamikaze creation video. Still working on the old girl, not everything goes according to plan, as a few of you other car builders out there would know. It's a process and you've got to enjoy it. I'm going to look at the cooling system. As you saw in the last video, she was up and running, but I didn't have the cooling system hooked up, and I want to get that hooked up and get some fluid in there. So I'm going to have a look at the modifying those thermo fans. I'm basically think I'm going to take one of the fans out of the housing and blank it off, and then fit them up and see if I can get them to run. So let's have a look at it. So here's my original Fenix setup. It had twin thermos in there, but I really haven't got enough room to run that second thermo. I was intending on, over here I've got a smaller diameter one, and these would go straight up to the face of the radiator, and I may still do that if it gets hot, but I think the one fan may be enough. Again, car building, it's all trial and error. I was a bit unsure. If we go over here, I was really a bit unsure about having both the inlet and the outlet on one side of the radiator. Again, it's trial and error, because the hot water is going to come out and then straight back up to the inlet. I don't know how much it flows across in the radiator, but fortunately that is the side that the thermo fan is sitting on as well, because I haven't got any room over the other side. So at this stage I'm just going to go with the one. So that's sort of set up and it fits in there beautifully, and I'll run the power wire off to the ECU. I think I've got it set up in the ECU now, so it'll work. And I'll fit them up to the radiator so I can get a radiator hose on and get some fluid into this engine. So that's how they fit up. There's not a huge amount. There's probably 10 or 15 mil down there, even though it looks closer. It's actually on the angle of the fan and sitting quite below. Over the other side, I didn't have a lot of chance because of that idler pulley or tensioner pulley, and as you can see the fan's been taken out, so I just got to put that top radiator hose on, which I bought the other day, and then I'm good to put some fluid in and see if I got any leaks. I've been having a few water leaking issues, mainly out of that thermostat cover. I've had it on twice, once just with gasket goo and once with a gasket and gasket goo, still leaking. So I'm going to pull all of that off today. I'm going to pull it right back to the main bracket and the actual thermostat housing. I've made new gaskets over here. So I've made up these gaskets, two of these, because I've got that bracket, so one either side of the bracket, and I'm going to use some Permatex this time, not the goo that I was using. I think it could be a problem. Also with the thermostat housing, Shane's actually skimmed the top of it, and I'm going to check this time whether the actual thermostat has enough clearance, because I didn't even see any goo squeezing out, so I think it might be bearing down on the actual thermostat and not pulling down correctly. It's the main issue, but I thought soon I'm doing the lot, I'll go back through and just make sure it all seals up. I've got a little leak on the front pulley that I need to look at too. I think I've just got to take this front pulley off and have a look inside, see where that's coming from, and have a look at fixing that. I've talked to Shane about it and he's given me a few suggestions on fixing that up. Got it all apart again, and that the thermostat housing and snout bracket were really hard to get off. They were quite tight. I think they were reasonably well sealed, but I couldn't tell because of the water coming out from above that whether it was actually coming from those faces but that's looking good, and I think I've solved the issue with a little oil weep on my snout, so I think I can fix that easily. Now I'm just going to go and check the gasket material that I've got is water resistant material. I just don't want to do this again. And I'll show you the thermostat housing and what I think my theories are there. So I think I had a couple of issues with this thermostat housing and thermostat. You'll notice this, I originally had an O-ring around here. And I think if I can get an O-ring to fit, that will solve the problem. There's been a light skim on here, and when I put these three things together, I can see a light gap in there. So this is definitely bearing on top of the thermostat. I've thought about taking that thermostat housing in to the workshop, setting it up and just giving that recess a light skim. Anyway, but also I'm going to go down and see if I can get the right O-ring to fit in here instead of using a gasket. So guys, I've had this thermostat housing, the top cap here, off I don't know how many times now, and I've still got leaks in it. Last time I took it off, I actually filed both surfaces, like the underside surface of this and the top surface of the lower thermostat housing. Just ran a file across them to see where the file marks were. I did a little bit more on this, and it definitely was high on either end. And I've put a brand new gasket in there that I bought off Repco rather than make one, with no gasket compound, and still got a leak. So I've also got leaks down on the lower thermostat housing where I've used those gaskets. I think that gasket material is pretty ordinary. So I think I've got to pull it all apart again and start and go and find some good gasket glue. I think the most successful I had was the Toyota gasket on that lower thermostat housing. I think it stuck pretty well with no gaskets. So I'm just going to go through if I can get that bottom one secured off. The top one's easy to do. The bottom one I've got to take all of the snout mounting and everything off to get it to fit. So as you can see, if you have a look down here, so as you can see, yep, fluid coming out again, just leaking out. As I said, I've done it 4 or 5 times and I've still got leaks. It's very frustrating. Sometimes these things are sent to try us. So guys, it's been a little bit of a frustrating day. One thing, a couple of things, the thermo fans are in there and they actually work. I got them to trigger today off the ECU. I set it at a relatively low temperature and they triggered up as soon as it hit that temperature, so that's great that I've got that working. The thermo fans are in there, the radiator's in there. I've just got to get that thermostat housing and that top thermostat cover to seal off. I'll rip it all apart again, give it all a clean up and have another go. But that's car building. I'll get there. Once I get it to seal up, I'm pretty much good to send it to a tuner. But until I can get that to seal up and I get the water to stay in there, I don't really want to send it to someone like that. But that's the last hurdle that I can think of at the moment. Everything else seems to be going reasonably good. A little bit of an issue with the wideband O2 sensor reading, but I think I'll get through that as well. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching.